Okay, we're going to check the voltage at the burner.
The burner. Now, if the truck is off, you will have 12 volts. You must have the truck on, and it has to be on the cool down position.
Okay.
Check it at the black and red wire. And you should have about 12 or greater. This has 13.5, which is good.
Okay, if there's no current, what's the problem?
If there is no current,
Well, then you got to get current to it.
yep,
That would make it a switch problem.
switch, breaker,
Wire. Okay, we're going to check the wire for the heated gun assembly.
Alright, we'll put the tester on the black wire for the ground, and the white wire will be for your heated gun assembly.
Now the computer has to be on.
And the computer has to be on. We'll get 15, 16 volts on this
That's just because of our battery charger, but in the truck you should get, if it's running 14,
about 14,
and if not 12.
greater than 12.
We're checking the fuel pump coupler located between the motor and the fuel pump. Abel's taking the screws out of the coil from the top of the burner. We're going to flip it back and locate it inside the squirrel cage is a coupler. If you haven't cooled down the burner after heating, the heat comes back down the tube and melts the fuel coupler, or sometimes they just wear out. So if you want to make sure that that's connected between the motor and the fuel pump. And outside he's got his hand on the motor, and the other side of the burner where the hoses are is the fuel pump. Okay, we're going to check the fuel solenoid, both for current and fuel flow.
This is the fuel solenoid. Watch, crack the line. Click on cool down. There will be no fuel on cool down. Very little. Click it onto the burn side. You will have a squirt of fuel come out.
Are we going to get sprayed here?
Shouldn't be much.
Okay, now we got fuel. So that means if you're getting fuel, you don't have to check current. It means everything's working. Now in the event that you don't get fuel, probably one of our first things to check is, number one, do we have fuel? The fuel pickup on most of these trucks is probably only about halfway down, so that you don't drain the truck tank. So rule of thumb is, you need to be full of fuel or 3/4 tank. Okay, we're going to check the fuel solenoid for power.
Yep, we'll test the red and the green wire. The computer's on. For the green and red wire, you will have no voltage. We'll turn the burner switch to burn. Test the red and the green wire. Now voltage.
The display doesn't show it, but you got 12 volts. And obviously our burner works, so it fires. Now that we've tested the solenoid for voltage, and at this point, if you're still not getting fuel, we've checked your fuel to get as far as the supply to the solenoid. At this point, you may be due for the coil on the solenoid or a new solenoid. All right, we're going to check fuel pressure.
Right.
We need to remove the fuel line.
And you'll need a gauge. So it reads up to 150 pounds of pressure. So that's what the pump's supposed to be at.
We got a 300-pound gauge. We hooked our gauge to the pressure port and put it into cool down mode and see what she reads. Reads about 160 psi, which is good. Okay, we got a blown seal in the fuel pump, so we're going to remove the fuel pump, replace the seal. put it back in. The two main fuel lines and the one little copper line that goes to the fuel solenoid. Then there's just two bolts. Go for it. Pull the snap ring out. Okay.
Make sure you get out also any little springs that might be left from the seal.
Okay, so there's nothing left. Then we just need a new seal.
Alright, installing the new seal. Make sure there's no debris in there. And the best thing to do, if you can find a socket, deep well, so you can tap on it to get it in. It shouldn't take a lot of force to get in. Just double check that it goes in straight. Snap ring back in. If you look on the coupler, it has a little groove on it, and at both ends. You'll have to line up for it to slide in.
You're talking about that flat spot?
Yep.
Okay.
You might have to play with it a little, and sometimes if you get lucky, you'll get it on your first shot. And make sure you always have your hoses going the same direction as they came off. And just reattach all your lines.
One thing is very important to do when you take these lines off is to mark which one goes where, because if you get them backwards, especially in a dual burner setup, you'll blow a seal. You'll be right back doing this lesson all over again. In the single burner setup, it probably just won't work. Okay, on the front side of the burner, some of the gauge port is the pressure adjustment. Abel's he's gonna monkey with it a little bit. It was fine. It was sitting on 150 psi, but it needs to be adjusted to 150. So you can do it by turning that screw. Okay, go ahead. Okay, we are checking for spark.
The
coil.
Screwdriver. And you must always have these so close together so you can see. And you can do it in the cool down position.
Now you just put your tongue on there, right?
Yep, that'll be perfect.
Okay, see the spark? Across the coil there.
You always have to have something jumping across. If you don't, you can burn the coil internally.
Yeah. So don't turn the coil on without it either being closed, the lid being closed, or like Abel says, having a screwdriver jumped across there, because otherwise you'll burn up the coil. We got sparks, so we're going to close the lid. Maybe we're going to check the electrode settings and the condition of the electrode. So we pulled the burner out of the truck, sitting on the ground, and we're looking in the end of it at the nozzle and electrode settings.
The center of the nozzle and the electrodes here, we need to designate the spacing for them. And the best thing to use is a drill bit. Alright, we use 2 drill bits, a 5/32 and a 1/4 drill bit. This will be our gapping tool and measuring. You use a 1/4 inch to measure your height between the center where the dot's at there, your nozzle, to your electrode. This will give you the height. The bottom of the drill bit from one side and the other side will be like a distance between the nozzle and the electrodes. And you use a 5/32 drill bit to give you the clearance between the 2 electrodes. It should be barely touching, and that would give you the distance between the 2 apart. And that would set you the correct height.
You're on.
Right, air intake. You have adjustments on the side here. And you have this one. These are 2 separate adjustments on this. You have a screw. They'll tighten down to keep this from moving. You want to make sure that these are all free and clear. There's no restriction on them.
I mean, as far as the holes.
Yep, as far as the holes. This will have to be loosened if you need to move it up for more air, or close it for less air.
Now they're all set down here in Wickenburg, Arizona, which is about 2,400 foot elevation. So depending on your elevation, you may have to make start with a fine adjustment, which is here, this lever here, and this screw. And then of course, if you can't get achieved what you need to do, then you make a coarse adjustment, which is the bottom vent with the screw and the wraparound. Alright, we're going to pull the burner out and check for a soot ring in our simulated tank here. Okay, the burner's out, and inside the heat tube I've set an orange mallet to represent where the soot ring would form. It's about 1.5 foot inside the heat tube, and what it does is forms like a Coke type donut inside the heat tube that we got to knock it out or clean it out. Yeah, there's Abel's got his flashlight on it. It doesn't appear orange when when you find one, but that's about where it's located, the soot ring. Okay, we're going to use a photo tack to measure the RPM of the blower. Make sure it's turning the right speed.
Right, when you open the coil, make sure you have something to cross to the other side so we don't hurt anything.
Cross the 2 electrodes so we don't burn up our coil.
Yep.
See how able to put a rivet or a nail in between the 2 coils. Try not to lick them when you got it apart.
Now I'm just putting a little sticker for the...
Sticking a little piece of electric tape on the squirrel cage so the photo tack can measure the RPMs.
Okay.